get started, but before we do, I'll note that we have a couple of excused absences. Commissioner Hively is traveling, Commissioner Miller is not feeling well, Commissioner Lee Osborne had a family obligation, so she may show up later this evening. We hope she can make it, but if not, she did share her district update with me to provide at the top of the meeting. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Fantastic. And just a note, we do have a quorum as a simple majority, so we're in good shape for voting. Officer Brown is unable to be with us here tonight, so we'll go ahead and just collectively lead the Pledge of Allegiance if you're able to stand, and we'll face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll kick off the meeting with district updates, starting with Commissioner Moritz.
Mark Moritz, District 6. The only update is that I got a couple of emails from residents about the changes in the zoning and direct them towards open house zoning. Told them they should let their voices heard.
Thank you.
Hugh Kroll, District 4. Everyone probably knows by now that the Clintonville Farmers Market is open, which is fine. We'll be there Saturday. I participated in the tree planting that was paid for by Columbia Gas as mitigation for the regulator stations that are going in. And Councilmember Christopher Weish was there, and Green Spot Committee Co-Chair Ryan Foshi, and 10 or 12 others. And we planted 22 trees. These are really large trees. I think they had a ball like that big. They were probably like 400 pounds. And but we had a lot of help with loaders and people who taught us how to do it. It was really fun. And then finally, I visited the zoning gallery and had good discussions with the staff that were guiding people through it. It's a very interesting presentation. I recommend it. And I also directed people to the zoning gallery and to the zoning website because she had specific questions about parking. That's it.
Thank you. Brittany Bolton, District 5. I did an Earth Day cleanup at Indianola K-8 with a bunch of Girl Scouts over Earth Day weekend. I wanted to note that Drew Miller, who is out not feeling well tonight, attended a fiscal training with the city. So that was for chairs and treasurers, and I had a personal conflict, so he handled that with CAC. I also have a brief update from Commissioner Lee Osborne. She said to let everyone know that Mary Rogers with the Clintonville Historical Society, who I think is presenting this evening, is presenting later this evening. I hope she wanted to make an event announcement.
She's next.
Oh, next month, that's right. Can I share this event announcement for June 2nd?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Oh, because it's before the meeting. Perfect. Okay. So, Mary Rogers with the Clintonville Historical Society and District 3 resident has asked us to share that the Clintonville Historical Society is hosting a local history open house on June 2nd from 1 to 4 p.m. at the Clintonville Women's Club. All are invited to attend. No membership is required. I also have a brief update from Officer Brown. He would like to share that on April 10th at 10:07 a.m., officers on 3 precincts responded to Chase Bank on a robbery. The suspect entered the bank and passed a note to the teller stating he had a gun and demanding money. The teller went to a back room to call the police. The suspect left the bank without any money. No weapons were seen. The suspect ran northbound. And then on the 24th at 10:44 a.m., officers said that there was a robbery at First Merchants Bank. And that suspect was taken into custody by SWAT. Additionally, on Tuesday, April 23rd, and I can send all this to you, Commissioner Moritz, for the minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. On Tuesday, April 23rd at 12:20 a.m., officers from 3 precincts responded to several calls about shots being fired at 287 Graceland Boulevard. Officers arrived on the scene and were met by the victim, who thought they heard someone breaking into their vehicle and went to their apartment balcony to yell at them. The victim said 4 suspects got into a white Jeep and fled eastbound. At the same time, a call came in from 267 Graceland Boulevard stating a round had come through their 2nd-story window and became lodged in a piece of furniture. The officers canvassed the scene where the victim said the suspects fired their shots and located no shell casings. However, officers did locate several shell casings at the bottom of the landing where the victim stated he was standing when the suspect shot at him. Officers asked the victim if he fired shots at the suspect. The victim denied shooting back. No injuries were reported. A vehicle was located in the parking lot with a bullet hole in the rear window. Two more shorter ones. On 4/20/6:16 p.m., officers were dispatched to a stabbing location at 2486 Finley Avenue. During an argument between neighbors, the suspect stabbed the victim in the neck and the chest. The victim has been transported to OSU Hospital Maine in stable condition, and the suspect is charged with felonious assault. And finally, Tuttle Park is scheduled for remediation of the unhoused camp. There was a notice to vacate posted for May 16th. It is likely to be vacated. So those are the updates from Officer Brown. Commissioner Lotta.
Hi, Paul Lotta, District 1. I took part in the Glen Echo Park Earth Day cleanup. I was alongside Commissioner Eric East from the University area, commission who we share a boundary, so got to know him a little bit better. It was kind of cool. Might be some opportunities for collaborative type of stuff between us there at the boundary. Have had discussions with CRPD about the possibility of building steps from the end of Esmond Street down into Glen Echo Ravine. Right now, the only way to get down in there is either from the stairs on the other side of from the main part of District 1, or Glen Echo neighborhood itself, south. So that's something that I think there's other people who are interested in that as well. Also learned the Urban Arboretum of District 1, as well as UCAN, the United Crestview Area Neighbors organization, is interested in revitalizing those two organizations or getting them going again. So that's kind of cool. That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Nutter.
Greg Nutter, District 2. I don't have a lot of report. I do appreciate the people that helped plant the trees at Como Park. It was great. So it looks like they had a good turnout, plus they had a food truck there too. Good environment, so that was great. As I said, I'm looking for good neighbors, and I always try to recognize somebody in the neighborhood or District 2 that does a good job. And I will have to say that I do have a neighbor on North Broadway that came over and helped work on the World War II memorial, which is in front of my house. And as she was helping lead, we discovered, to her surprise, that there is a mallard duck nest in that monument with 12 eggs in it. So North Broadway will have our own duck parade, trying to get back to the river, hopefully soon, without getting run over on North Broadway. So that's the one big thing, so thank you.
Commissioner Wyman.
Mike Wyman, District 7, nothing to report.
Thank you. Commissioner Moritz, would you like to present the April meeting minutes for approval?
I shared the minutes twice, and I think I got only one feedback to add the resolution that we approved last month. We'll do that, otherwise I didn't get any feedback.
Is there a motion to approve minutes?
So,
Second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Moritz? Oh, yeah, aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Kroll? Aye.
Aye.
No treasurer's report this month as Commissioner Miller is out. Updates from the Department of Neighborhoods?
Thank you. Okay, good evening, commissioners, good evening, citizens. So the zoning gallery, I sent an email regarding that. Your council member, President Pro Tem Dorns, will be at the zoning gallery Saturday, May 18th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So he'll be there personally to address any questions or concerns, or if you want to learn more about the zoning gallery. You've already heard, I think we're going to have a presentation tonight. But it's a really great place to go. They really, really want public feedback, and they've engaged in really great conversation. So I highly recommend looking up those open hours if you can't make it on May 18th from 10 to 2. Just go there. Parking is free on the second level. And then if you go to the website, it tells you exactly how to get there. So strongly encouraged to do that. You got your business cards. They look wonderful. If anybody else would like to order business cards or anything else, I think that now that they have your design, it'll be a quicker turnaround. And that design is beautiful. They really turned out nice. So let me know and I can get on that and order those for you. as well as anything from the print shop while it's free. We don't know what to, make sure you don't break stuff, I'm just saying, take advantage of it. As mentioned before, the fiscal process meeting was on April 20th. I sent out a recording if you're interested in watching it, and also documentation about that process. On May 8th, which is next Wednesday, we are scheduled to have a neighborhood Pride Center refresh listening session at the Near East Pride Center on 1393 East Broad Street. Just, well, I'm kind of far from your district from Clintonville. My Pride Center is the Northside Pride Center, and it's on 11th, 248 11th Avenue in the University District. But we want to change the way it looks and feels in the way that it is kind of delivered. They could get some more services there, maybe ways to pay utility bills or things like that. But we're taking in those considerations, and we'd like to hear definitely from you guys. Let's see, the next area commission training is May 18th. It is planning, variance, and rezoning. It is at 111 Front Street in the second floor computer lab. If you want to attend that training, please let me know because spaces are limited. There is another one later in the year, but if you want to go to this one, just shoot me an email, text, call me, whatever you need to do. And finally, the Mid-Ohio Food Collective has invited the commissioners to their grand opening of to celebrate the grand opening of Riverview Community Garden, to see the space, meet the staff, and that is on Thursday, May 16th from 4 to 6, and that is at 3165 Olentangy River Road, located behind NBC4 Studios. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions? Questions from the public? Okay. Do we have a representative from City Council here tonight? I guess he needs, I don't see Harrison. Obviously we covered police. Anyone from City Attorney's Office? Welcome.
Hello, thank you. Hello, commissioners. And my name is Christopher Clark. I am the Zone 4 attorney in the Property Action Team. What we do is we sue individuals and corporations for violations of city code, anything that is a public nuisance. So if there's a property or a business that is in Zone 4 that is causing issues, then you can feel free to contact me, and we'll send it out to code, to fire, to police, to health and safety, whoever our client is that directly is involved with that. And sometimes it's a collaborative effort between many departments. I do have business cards, and it's always good to see you, be here, and I don't have anything major to report, but if you have questions or concerns, please let me know, and I will address them as promptly as I can.
Thank you. Any questions for, Commissioner Morris?
I can have a card.
Any questions from commissioners for Mr. Clark? Questions from the public for Mr. Clark? Okay. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
With that, we're moving a little bit ahead of schedule. So Mr. Lewis and Mr. Sauersmith, I think is here too, did I see back there? Are here to give us another update on the zoning code reform efforts. And am I pulling something up?
No, I'm just gonna go off on a sheet here and try to create a descriptive pictures of what this is.
Thank you.
Hopefully that works. Well, thank you again, everybody, for allowing us to come back out here and to address you about the zoning code update. Last time I came out here, I was kind of brief because not a lot had been revealed at that time, but now we've got a lot of updates, and thanks to some of the commissioners kind of plugging the gallery earlier, that's all I have, so I think I can go home. Just joking. But obviously, as we all know, or as you've been saying, the code is broken. It is outdated. It's more than 70 years old. It's inequitable. It has created a lot of the issues that we are struggling to address today. It increased urban sprawl. It displaced a lot of individuals that lived in some of our areas that had people of color living there in thriving neighborhoods. And so one of the things that we're looking to do with this code is to bring it into the 21st century. because the code, again, was last comprehensively updated in the 1950s. So the 1950s Columbus is not the 2024 Columbus as we know. And in addition to that, we also know that the region is growing fast, very fast. And actually, I think when I wrote my talking points about a month ago, we were the fastest growing region in the Midwest. Well, I think I saw something not too long ago that says now we're the fastest growing city in the nation. And so that is something that we definitely need to take seriously, because as people start to move to our city, we want to have places where they can be able to live, where they can be able to grow, raise their families, and do all of those things. And so with this zoning code update, one of the proposals that we're looking at, or one of the things that we've included in the proposal, is to leverage our corridors so that we can create more housing on those corridors. Right now, of the 140 miles of corridor that are focused in this first phase of the update, 80% of the buildings on those corridors have a 20 or 30 foot height limit. So when you think about housing individuals and you think about what these corridors are capable of, that doesn't leave a lot for us to do. But if we look at this zoning code update proposal that we have, what we're proposing is that we could potentially have up to 88,000 units on these corridors. Now that's kind of a scary thing, but when you think about it, a lot of these corridors already have the infrastructure and the capacity in place to be able to absorb this, but what our code is doing is constraining the ability for us to actually maximize that potential. That 88,000 units that I just said, that's only 44% of the housing that we would need to keep up with the growth and the pace in the coming years. We actually need about 200,000 units over the next 10 years to keep up with the pace of growth. Right now on our corridors, if we didn't do anything at all, we could potentially have about 6,000 more housing units. So that kind of illustrates the need for us to look at this code and to come up with good reasons for why we should update it to be able to respond to the needs of the community. We started this process in the fall of 2022. We opened it up with undesigned red line. And that focused on areas in Columbus that were historically redlined and saw a lot of negative effects as a result of that redlining. From there, what we did was we went around to area commissions and informed them of the need for the zoning code update, and then also just wanted to get out in the community and to engage with individuals that live in these areas to kind of get a feel for what they were thinking. From there, what we did was we had community conversations last year, in addition to area commission tours last spring. We started those community conversations. We focused on housing and what housing would mean, or how housing would be impacted as a result of some of these code updates. We had one of those community conversations just right across the way at Whetstone Community Center, which had a really good turnout. And then from there, we talked about main streets. So we had a community conversation on main streets, and that was held at a church on the near east side called City of Grace. And so we went deep into what an updated zoning code would mean to our main streets, how it could support small businesses, how it could revitalize some of these communities where this investment happened. And then from there, we had a panel discussion at the Lincoln Theater last summer, where we had President Hardin counsel, facilitating the panel discussion, and we had some small scale developers, larger scale developers, and then we also had some community members and our chief zoning official there to go in depth about how development happens and what kind of things developers are looking for when they're looking to develop certain areas. And then it was really important for us to have a woman named Beatrice Nokuru, who is a small-scale developer, but she was a part of the Emerging Developers Program, which was sponsored by the Affordable Housing Trust. And so she was able to give some really good background information on small-scale development, because when we think about developers, sometimes we think about the Gildanes and the big ones, you know, all the bigger developers, but there are also individuals like myself, like my colleague, who maybe we just want to, you know, have a ADU or a granny flat or convert something on our property into something that can be income generating or allow us to age in place. And right now, the way the code is written, it constrains that type of development. From there, we had a survey which had about 6,000 respondents, and we gave them just options to see what we're proposing and just to get a feel for what they thought about it. It's a lot of detailed information. I think this is a good opportunity to plug the zoning gallery, because we actually have the dashboard up on a very large television in the gallery, and you can go up to it and see all the different things that were, different questions that were asked, what people thought from different parts of the city, you know, just to kind of get a feel for what that survey, what the feedback was on that survey. On April 8th, I think the last time I was here, the resolution hadn't passed, but council passed a resolution on April 8th to start the 60-day public comment period. And that's a lot of the reasons why we're coming out to area commissions now and sharing this message, because we really do want to hear back from everyone about, you know, what this proposal would mean for you, what you think about it. You know, we really want to get the community feedback, because that's critical. This is a city that we all have to live in. And so it's important that we all have our opinions heard about what we think about this proposal. And in addition to that, another opportunity, so next Tuesday, council is actually gonna have the first hearing of 3 hearings on the proposed zoning code update and the map update. And so that's gonna be from 5:30 to 7 at Douglas Recreation Center, which is at 1250 Windsor Avenue, obviously Columbus, Ohio, 43211. And again, even if council votes this summer we anticipate that they will. But obviously that's a long road, because again, we really want to hear back from the community and take those feedback that we get into consideration before any action happens on this. We hope it can happen this summer, but again, it's still a very community engagement-led process. And so even if, hypothetically, if everything were to be together and they did vote on it this summer, development in the built environment would take time. So I know I man the phone lines, and I get a lot of calls, and you know, there are some individuals that are like, well, is this eminent domain? It's like, no, it's not. We want it to be far from eminent domain. And the thing that's going to help that happen is the input from people. In addition to the fact that this has never been an eminent domain situation. This has been something that we've seen through applications, and we've seen through the administrative processes, that we're seeing all the signs that the code has some weak points and is broken. And to reiterate the priorities of this proposal, we want to leverage the corridors so we can have housing in more places. We want to support Main Street jobs and businesses. We want to promote a more equitable city. There are some parts of the city and some people who aren't able to use the code in a way that would allow them to have the same equitable outcomes as maybe some of our other wealthier corporations or individuals. We want to expand those corridors to create healthy, connected communities. You know, I know the interstate system, it went through, 70 went through and displaced a lot of people in the South of Main neighborhood, you know, Livingston Avenue, Driving Park, all of those places. And then, you know, it's historically known that 670 did the same thing for a lot of the neighborhoods that were there, the communities there on the Near East Side. And so that point is to start to encourage development that brings us back together instead of sprawls us out and keeps us, separated. And then we want to foster good urban design. We want the right buildings in the right places. There's some buildings, and if you come down to the zoning gallery, there's actually a board that shows what the proposed code elements, what kind of building designs that we would get as a result of the updated code, and then kind of what we can get now with the code. And what we can get now with the code is this side of basically a rectangle building just in the middle of a neighborhood. That doesn't work for everyone. And so we understand that, and to get a building that would be acceptable by some neighborhood standards takes a lot of negotiation, a lot of time, and that's not an equitable process for everyone. So the three takeaways with this updated proposal, we're looking to, increase the height. In some areas, what we'll have are 4 stories by right, and some are 5 stories by right, and then you have some areas that are 7 stories by right. Now, in this area is mostly a 4-story area, and so it's not to get too technical, but there are 6 zoning districts, and in Clintonville, especially along North High Street, there's Urban General 1, which is basically an urban setting which allows commercial uses, residential, office, retail, and civic, and that height limit is 4 stories. And I know that in addition to creating these districts, we're also looking at ways that this zoning code update won't intentionally displace individuals. And so one of the things that is a part of the proposal for some of these developers that are building in particular areas, there's a height bonus based on the percentage of units that you have designated for affordability. And so our hope in that way is that we can increase the density, but we can also increase the types of housing stock so that we can relieve pressure on this high demand housing market and be able to bring some of those costs back within the reach of some of our most vulnerable residents. And so with that, I just want to again echo the commissioners and also yourself. I just want to say that the zoning the zoning gallery is open through July. The public comment period ends on June the 10th. And so it's just really imperative, if you can, bring your friends, bring your neighbors, come down, check it out. That will really give you an opportunity to see the proposal. We have a lot of good information there that shows why the code needed to be updated and actually gives facts and figures on the board, and then you can walk through, you can just see it all in a visual demonstration. So with that, I thank you for allowing me to come out here and share this information with you. I tried my best to answer any questions you have.
Thank you for coming back. I know you were here last month as well, and we appreciate you coming back and giving such a detailed presentation. I want to just clarify briefly, the June 10th comment period ending, is that on phase 1 that is proposed?
Yes.
So there will be more opportunities. So I just want to be super clear, because I've had some neighbors reach out and ask about their specific side streets that they live on.
Mm-hmm.
There will be plenty more opportunities to continue engaging on the streets that are not necessarily the main corridors during this first phase.
Yeah, this is just the first phase, so we just focus, because it's a very huge gargantuan task, and so we found out that from data and just a lot of the area plans and just through previous community engagement that it was good to start on our corridors. And the second phase will go into the neighborhoods, but we haven't even started talking about that.
You'll have plenty of notification when that time comes, and there's a lot of other corridors that we're not looking at as well, so those will also be put into consideration. There's other aspects to that look at, so it's looking out probably a year, 2 years before where it really start. And then engaging, like James is saying, it's a huge, huge city, as we all know, so we're not gonna be able to do the whole thing, all the residential neighborhoods at once. So as soon as we know more about the approach, I'll be very adamant to encourage a very constant stream of communication with the community over the course of the next, honestly, probably we're looking at like 10 years, several years of going through this process, so.
Commissioner White, you have a question?
Is there actually language that you can read, like the code section that's being changed? Is there language?
Yes,
Is that
so-
on the website, or, because I looked on the website, I couldn't find the actual language.
Yes, so it's actually under a tab that says the map and the proposal, code proposal and map. And then there are two links there where it says, see the proposal and then see the map. And if you click on that, it will bring up the whole document. I think it's about 200 and some pages, and you can go as deep as you want to. And if you come to the gallery, we actually have physical copies of it on here and there that you can read.
Then we have summaries as well, but it'll be the basic, like the.
That's all I can find with summaries.
That's all you can find with summaries. I downloaded it today, so when you go in to the website, I don't know how I'm gonna show everybody how to do this.
If you want, Alex, you're welcome to
Yeah,
pull it up
if
on
you
here.
wanna pull the,
You
yeah.
can drive.
It auto-populates mine here, so.
I did mine too.
So there we go. So.
Thank you.
QR code on the back will take you straight.
So it's like James saying, so you can sign up to visit the gallery and check out that calendar there. And then go down.
Do you have to sign up to see? You can't just show up?
Yeah, so we encourage people to RSVP, but you do not have to sign up. You can just show up. You look on the calendar, you find open time, show up. We encourage you to, that way we're prepared, we have enough staff in case we have a lot of people. That's really the only reason we want to do that. We like to track, so we want to know how many people are coming out and what our reach is. I always go up here, actually, it's the easiest way. So at the top, you can have this bar with everything right there, so the gallery up there will be the place where you go to sign up. So if you go to that code map and proposal, and this is the full draft right here. I'm not gonna hit that for you because it's gonna download it. It's a pretty big file, but you can do it right there. You can also, some of the past stuff James was talking about, and I will hit this one. I would like to show you that. This is the map. Like James said, we have this on a smart board in the gallery where you can interact with it. We can talk to you about it. But you can kind of see the coloration in there, and those are all going to be the corridors we're looking at. On this left side over here, you can submit feedback, so you can go and click on a section in there, or if you have a parcel you're interested in, or a property, or just an area, you can click on there. It'll bring up this box, and then you can make specific comments like, I like this district, it's great. This district sucks, I don't want this. Whatever you want to do, so you can kind of vote on it that way, and then we have a general feedback as well. But this is a real nice, I'm trying to go there and drive, but a real nice way. You don't have to touch screen, do you?
I do.
So if we kind of go in here, we'll go into roughly where we're at here. And then you can kind of see where all those, what the districts are that James was talking about. And then you pop it up and it'll load. It'll show you a little bit of a graphic of what it could look like. It's definitely not going to look exactly like this, and then it gives you a small little, this is what we're proposing here. And this is just a brief summary of what we have in the code, and there's some other stuff in here where you'll see an actual, it's kind of like a board, and it shows all the districts, and it'll have detailed information of all the things that are being proposed in those different districts there. So that's how you can find it. And again, if you want to go, I won't grab everything up here, but if you want to go to the gallery, again, you just kind of click on there. They're organizing. This is where you have the calendar. Now, this is a product that it's not the most user-friendly, but it's what we have to work with. So you're going to have to actually click on the box. So like Baytown, that's what's going to be going on. We have one-on-ones or special requests. So if you want to have a more like intimate or private conversation with somebody, we can organize that too. We are reserving that more for property owners, but people are welcome to do that too. If you have a group that wants to come in, you can reach out. You can actually reach out to me or James and get that done too. We can set that up for you. But you can just kind of go through and see what's going on throughout all these different nights and try to find something where we have more. And then we have like these city council events. Sustainability environment is the theme of that one. You'll have other ones that have city council members on it. I probably get it, LGBTQ. You kind of get the point here. But if you want to, you can go in and then RSVP as well on here. So if you want to sign up, you click on there, it'll bring up a form, and you'll be able to fill that out. And with that, on your Peter, back to you.
Thank you. And I'm going Tuesday night. There's an area commission specific one, so if any of the other commissioners would like to go, I'm happy to carpool. Tuesday I can get from 5:30 to 7, so just shoot me an email. Are there other questions from commissioners for Mr. Soursmith or Mr. Lewis? Yeah, Commissioner Wyman.
Are they incorporating the Americans with Disability Act in this code?
Let's see, the ADA, ADA that we leave that to our ADA, I don't know what the title is, coordinator. So that whole, so to say that it's like it quotes ADA in there, no, but we use a lot of ADA requirements in there as far as accessibility. When you go and you look at the full document, you'll see a lot in there as far as entryways, frontages, things of that nature, how to connect. One of the general things we're trying to accomplish with this code is create more walkable communities, and more walkable communities will be accessible to all people of all abilities. And so,
Well, I'm more concerned with housing.
what's that, housing? And you're talking more like, are you talking more exterior or interior?
Exterior, interior.
Yeah, we're just dealing with the exterior here, so the interior is gonna move into building code, things of that nature, yeah.
The, I'm sorry, follow up.
Go for it, please,
Go ahead.
Commissioner Wyman, yeah.
One of my very first meetings as commissioner, a member of the Department of Development came in bragging about how they tell developers only build 2-story units or 3-story with residential on the bottom. Why did they do this? Because they didn't have to put in elevators.
Yeah.
Are they gonna continue that discriminatory practice, or?
I mean, with the new code, it's gonna be allowed, I don't know who said that, but, with the code, it's gonna allow, we're allowing anywhere from, as James was saying, 4 stories in those UGN or urban general, areas. And then you'll go all the way up, usually most of it's around 5-7 stories. So at that point, they'll be putting in elevators there. We don't necessarily encourage people to do 2 or 3 or 4 stories. It's what they want by right. And then negotiate through that process. But also, it's something within our process that we look at and ensure that there is accessibility there as well. Now, the interior is a little bit of a story. I can't speak to that, but on the exterior, we definitely look at that.
Commissioner Lotta.
Yeah, just to be clear, the 4-story in this zone here is not required, that's the maximum. So if someone wants to build a 3, that works out for them, or a 2.
Exactly, yeah,
Okay.
exactly as he was saying. So all these are maximums, and 4 stories is 1 more story of what they have by right today. And just because in some, not in Clintonville, but in like closer to downtown in the short north where you already see this, we're proposing, much taller. And I don't think that in a lot of these places, you are going to see people building to the max of the zoning code in the next several years to 10 years. Where there is the market, you might see that. University, you're probably gonna see that. There's a huge market there for that, and you're gonna see people try to push those height limits as far as they can go. When you go into other neighborhoods, I don't think you're gonna see as much of that. Over time, perhaps, but when you do see that, it'll be at busy intersections, and especially as we see things like CODA and the Link Us initiative, which is proposing to bring bus rapid transit here, which is feeds really into your ADA accessibility. Those will be at level boarding. You'll be able to go into the front, the back, pay ahead of time. There's, from what I've been told, inside the buses, you'll be able to more easily position a wheelchair in there without as much assistance from the driver for the folks that need that. All of those things kind of come together. Yeah, you won't see, to go back to your question, I don't think that you're gonna see people building up to that height in all places. The 4 stories, they may go to 4 stories. I can see some being interested in doing that.
Yeah,
But the money has to work for them.
Sure, I've heard comments from people who are like for this and against it, so I'm just kind of trying to.
Absolutely.
Just a couple more questions. I noticed in one section there was for environmental benefits in the zoning code. I wonder if it does things like it explains how it slows down sprawl perhaps, or more opportunities for transit, as you mentioned, that city services are more concentrated, thereby more efficient.
Yeah.
So it's like, are there things that point that out in the code or in the zonas?
I think there's things that we talk about that. I don't know if that's directly in the code so much, but it's definitely in the
Byproduct of the code.
speak. Yeah, and all the things you mentioned, especially the city services part, it's a much more efficient use of taxpayer dollars to concentrate that in an area. And there is or will be open space requirements also in the code as well, as there is some today. However, the real open space comes into play at those green fields. So on the edges of Columbus that have not been developed, that may be farmland now, that may be naturalized areas, concentrating development in areas of Columbus that have previously been developed, because most of these parcels, even if they are empty, have been developed before. We had a much greater population, 50 or so years ago than we do now. And so that in and of itself is a huge environmental benefit for everyone, because it gives more opportunities for farmland, for us to interact with nature and to not disturb what hasn't been disturbed in the past.
And just one quick question. When council votes for this, is it effective immediately? Or is there like a wait period? Or?
It would be 30-day legislation to my knowledge.
So basically within a month, and you're good to go. Yeah, thank you.
Questions from other commissioners?
I had a question about the height bonus for people providing housing at a lower rate. Does that apply to the 4-story districts like General 1 and 2, or is that just for urban centers?
The latter, but you're speaking it correctly. You must have taken a look at that, because you're right on point with that. In those areas of the urban general 1 or 2, it is going to be 4 stories max. There is no bonus that you can tap into.
And we do have urban centers here in Clintonville, like North Broadway and High is one.
Henderson.
Yeah.
Henderson.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And the other question I had is, I noted in the districts, the details of the districts at the zoning gallery, the bottom line is that there are no minimum parking requirements for any of these districts. How does that work? I assume that's going to be controversial.
Yeah, I mean, it comes up a lot, right? I mean, when you say no minimum parking, everybody thinks that there's not going to be any parking at all, and they're going to be zero parked, and then you're going to have cars all over the street, and it's going to be a hot mess. What we found is, and I mean, sitting on the commission, you see there's a lot of parking variances that come through right now. And so what they are proposing now is probably what you're going to, with variances, is probably what you'll see without variances. And most of that we see on average is about a 1-to-1 ratio. 1 unit, 1 parking space ratio. There's a few things that come into play when they, propose a development and include parking in it. And one of the main things is, of course, they have to get a loan for this, right? And the bank is obviously going to do their due diligence to make sure that the developer is putting out a product that's going to return their investment. So that's one of the first checks, I would say, on that already exists out there without the zoning code doing anything. Another check that we have with the city is that if somebody were to come in and say, hey, I'm going to build a 200-unit apartment building, I'm not providing any parking, zero at all, that's going to trigger us to take a closer look, obviously. That's not going to be enough in most cases. So, this is where, we work with the Department of Public Service or our Transportation Department and our Parking Division, and they would take a look at what is the on-street parking looking like. How full is it? Is there permit parking already? Is permit parking feasible for that? And if they were to say, hey, we need to, zero might be a bad example, let's say like 200 units and like 100 spaces or something like that. We don't have permit parking here. There is on-street space for on-street parking. We can manage it a little bit better. We're going to initiate permit parking. However, the people that will move into that 200-unit development do not get to tap into that permit parking. That permit parking is going to be for existing residents only. And so sometimes, and this is still being worked out about how they're going to carry this forward, so we'll be sure to really get that out there once we make a solid decision on how this is going to go through. But often they would also look for the developer to provide, to pay for that permit parking for existing residents for a certain period of time, so that the current residents are both not burdened and also have parking. And then what that also obviously does is put that burden back on the developer to say, well, you're only proposing 100 spaces, you're not getting on-street parking, how are you going to get these units filled up? And so that's going to spur them to think about, is there shared parking agreements they could enter in dense areas where we already have density, and maybe structured parking? Is that structured parking full? Is there a way to tap into that? Do Are you gonna have to provide more on site in order to meet that? What are other ways that they can do? So, it's, while it seems just like no minimum parking, it's like, whoa, what are you talking about? I mean, that's a bold step, right? But we feel that there's enough checks and balances, and we will have enough checks and balances in the future to help control that. And I'm not gonna say it's gonna work out perfect, because it is not. And there's gonna be situations where it's gonna be a little bit messy, for sure. We're at the place in our, at the place and time in our city that it's, obviously, we talked about growth and all that, I'm not gonna, beat that to death. But as we know, it's very, very easy to get around in this city in a car. And we have transit, and it does work, but it could be a lot better. And we are trying to bring better transit at that time, but that's gonna take time. It's not gonna align in every case. Down the road, we'll see that. But also, keep in mind, moving back to when the zoning code goes into effect, if this zoning code goes into effect after that 30-day period, it isn't gonna be an explosion of development. It's going to happen over time for a variety of reasons. One of the main reasons is interest rates and where they're at now. That's a big one for sure. But also there's property owners that are gonna see this and they're gonna be like, yep, I've been sitting on this for a while, or maybe I've had plans to do something. I'm gonna wait for a real high bid. So there's gonna be a lot of competition there for that. And there's gonna be some things that the city might be able to do. Things like maybe the city can do some acquisition, not eminent domain, but acquisition, where we're actually going and negotiating with property owners and trying to obtain properties, especially properties that are underutilized and more so neglected. So there's a variety of tools that we can use, and it's important when we look at the zoning code also to see that this isn't the end all be all, right? This is the first swipe at about 5% of our city coverage acreage, right? There's gonna be a lot more city for us to approach. And if the zoning code, if the zoning code were to go through and how it's written, that doesn't mean that that's gonna be it and it's not gonna change. If there's room for amendments, we've amended our existing code countless times. This is also gonna be amended. So, something to think about also is how will those amendments work? Where will the involvement of those amendments be? Because while it will reduce variances in some of these areas, there's still gonna be plenty of variances out there for sure. But where there isn't variances, what are we seeing? How is that working? And how can, instead of those one-on-one site-by-site negotiations, how can we work the public input and the public's desire, and perspective into the zoning code itself? So it doesn't have to be negotiated for. It's done by code with the public's input.
I want to be mindful. I appreciate this. It's a very important conversation, and I don't want to stifle it. And I want to be mindful of allowing a little bit of public comment tonight as well. I'm also, I don't know how many times you want to come back to Clintonville, but I'm happy to keep the conversation going another month if we need to continue it going. Are there, Commissioner Moritz, you didn't get a chance to ask the question, or Commissioner Nutter, did either of you want to ask the question this evening?
I've scheduled going to go May 18th for the zoning code.
Okay.
I would like to attend one of the zoning meetings. I've attended several zoning meetings in the past, when you first started last year and stuff. I have mixed feelings about it, to be honest with you, as far as the growth goes, with the Columbus and stuff. I see it, it's something that's gonna happen. We just have to be mindful and be respectful, and do respectful development. I just don't wanna see 5-story buildings all over on High Street. I don't think that's appropriate.
And that's an architectural best practice. You want to have space, where you have some height and then you have a little bit less. It gives relief. It makes it feel like a more comfortable.
My concern is I see that happening already.
Yeah.
I see it. I see it going in Arlington. I see it going in Grandview, and I see it down High Street.
Yeah.
So I know it's coming, and that's what it's looking like, and I don't like it.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
Yeah, and that's, what we're attempting to do with this code, but we're putting in design guidelines and things that would never exist in the current code and never been in the current code to try to, because the growth is coming. And it's not about whether or not it's coming, it is. And so how can we best manage that growth? How can we get the best product out on the street too, while this growth occurs, and not just let it go whichever direction it wants to go?
But I also think that you have to have good services as well to go with it.
You absolutely do. And besides the amendments that I talked about, another piece that I meant to say and I didn't, there's a lot that can be done too, policy-wise and service-wise. Those conversations as well, with your council members, with your different departments, how can they come alongside this development and how we look at that? Because again, the code's not going to solve everything. A lot of concerns I think people have really aren't even related to the code, but they're related to the development in of itself that's coming and all of the services and things that we need there too. And with that training that was mentioned earlier, how they encourage people to come to that training, it's led by our division, and we walk through how we do things, but we also give people the tools so that they can use those tools and utilize those to share their perspective in a way that is more productive in the conversations that you'll have with variances and zones.
Are we ready to move on to public comment? Are there any questions from the public this evening? Yeah, Mary Rogers.
So, Mary Rogers, Clintonville Historical Society. I have done a lot of research on just the development of the city of Columbus, and I recognize some of the same themes in these proposals that were in the proposals of the 1940s and 1950s, where, you know, the city was a proponent of removing the slums that now we all would say were historically significant parts of our community that are now lost in the test of time. What is this zoning change doing to preserve these historic areas from too much of a change, where we all are sitting here 40 years from now saying, gosh darn it, I wish we would have kept that building? Because I know we have a historic preservation office. It seems very underfunded, and we don't have any additional historic districts that have been established any time in the recent years. So I am concerned as a historian and as a citizen of Columbus that we're gonna lose more of this architecture, and that it's gonna be replaced with big, huge rectangular boxes. So just wanna understand what we're doing, and I have seen nothing to date that would indicate that we're doing anything preservation-wise to ensure that we're not gonna just end up with even less significant buildings than we have now. This body, the CAC, did an entire inventory of historic buildings less than 5 years ago on both High Street and Indianola. So I'm wondering if the city's even aware of those documents and the importance of those buildings that were in that inventory to the citizens who live here now.
Yes.
Not really a question, you know, that has to be answered at this moment, but
Yeah, sure.
I feel like there hasn't been a lot of exchange in regard to how we are going to make a meaningful change and not destroy more of our architectural past.
Yeah, I mean, that's always going to be a concern when you have private property owners that own those buildings. And they're the ones that, in the end, control that and the demolition that would potentially come with that. Our Historic Preservation Office was there during the creation of this code. Jamie Goodman, along the whole way. It's something that in our office we look at a lot, because there's historically designated buildings, like you said, in districts as well. But there's a lot of what we like to call contributing buildings, because we can't call them historic, that we always take a close look at to see, you know, is this the right thing, and what can be done to preserve those, or at least aspects of those buildings. And I know it's not going to work out in every instance where that's going to be a beautiful relationship with us and the property owner and the developer, but it's something that we definitely strive to do. With the code in the existing historic districts, those districts will operate the same way they do today. The only thing that really changes is the zoning on those parcels along those corridors. They'll have less variances in the building and zoning services process, but they will still have to go through those historic commissions and abide by the same design guidelines and get those COAs as well. So that's protections, at least in those districts as well, alongside of us in our department taking a look at when those things come through and how can we help preserve those buildings.
But what about the expansion of those districts? Because that hasn't been happening. And now these changes in zoning codes are going to be motivating to property owners.
Yeah.
And as a follow-up question, you did mention that the city plans on purchasing properties in order to ensure that, you know, the zoning happens the way that they envision it. So why wouldn't they be
Something we might do.
purchasing historical buildings in order to make sure that they're preserved now?
Yeah.
Instead of just kind of waiting to see what happens.
Yeah, what comes to mind is the fire station on West Broad in Franklinton, where they built a new fire station right next to it and had the old building that was kind of, not being utilized. And now that's going to be put back into use, and that's something that the city controls. So that's an example of it. I mean, are there going to be opportunities where we take on historic buildings? I don't know that we would do that or not, but I think everything that you're saying needs to be said. Again, we are in a public comment period, and I don't want to, understate that this is a public comment period. We are listening to what people are saying. We need people to speak up to that. If you have, and other people feel the same way, please relate that message, because that then puts us into a place where we can get more people around the table to take a look at how we could do that.
So I feel that my participation in this public meeting today is me making those statements.
I'm writing it down.
And I'm thinking that there's at least a few other people in this room that maybe they'd raise their hands saying, yeah, ditto.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Absolutely. No, I get it. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Get other people.
So I'm hoping that
please.
I'm being registered as being somebody who's speaking up now. I'm not sure how we're facilitating these particular questions when it comes to the gallery. I didn't see anything specific about the sort of preservation in that gallery space.
Right.
So I don't feel, and I'm not trying to be negative Nelly here,
Yep.
I don't feel that we're focused on that. And I understand we're trying to bring housing to our neighborhoods in a responsible way, but this is an area that seems to be absent.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rogers, for bringing this up this evening. I know we have a couple more comments. Ms. Bullock in the front row.
I was gonna make a similar comment. I'm an architect and I do a lot of work in these areas. And of course, I work with developers, and the first thing they want to do is tear down an old building. And it just seems to me that this code is very problematic in areas that don't have historic commissions, but have area commissions. And if there's no variances, they're not gonna come to the Clintonville Area Commission. I'm just wondering if this code as a protection would require if, whatever the designation is of those properties, that they be required to get, approval for demolition, essentially. I just think, and as I was driving here today for this meeting, there's so many beautiful buildings on High Street that, they're two-story, and I know developers come to me and say, I want to tear it down and just start over, and I just think part of this code needs to protect our history. And when you have area commissions that don't have historic review, you see it a lot in Nearest Area Commission too. Just, I think it's a problem that needs to be addressed, or at least have some sort of demolition control over the historic structures.
People also should remember that we had a proposal for, I believe it was 3 stories of apartments over 1 story of parking, over 1 story commercial at the southwest corner of North Broadway and High. Commission ended up effectively blocking it by tabling it. Now we have a completely code compliant strip mall plus an abandoned building because people decided they didn't want a tall building. Strip malls are perfectly fine right now. If you like strip malls, that's the existing code.
Thank you. Any other public comment this evening? Yeah, Ms. Enro.
Okay, I'll try to make it quick. If you make an appointment to go to the gallery, I hope that the gallery will be open on time. They were not there at the 1 o'clock appointment time. They finally showed up at 10 after 1. And parking, I haven't looked to see if the parking has been updated, the information, because we had no idea where to go to park, and the nice guy in the parking garage let us in. And anyhow, there needs to be some kind of, if you're going to the gallery, turn here. There was construction there 2 weeks ago. I don't know what it's like now. And when it comes to the parking minimums or maximums or whatever you want to call it with development, is there a component in there for dumpsters, deliveries? Because all buildings require maintenance, and maintenance usually means service trucks, as well as is there parking that is for emergency vehicles when something happens in the building and the squad's got to get there, where do they park? Also, as I reminded you last August, I'm reminding you again, redlining has been illegal by the federal government since the 60s, and that over and over again, we keep hearing the same word, the developers, the developers, the developers, the developers. Let's hear it for the taxpayers and the residents. And the next thing, the only question I really have is, will there be any kind of infrastructure report prior to July? Because I haven't seen anything from sewers and drains or city services that, I know that we're going through all this I&I sewer remediation in the older parts of the city where we had, woefully inadequate storm and sanitary, which were overflowing into each other. I haven't seen any reports from sewers and drains. I haven't seen anybody from streets. If you put these buildings at zero setback, then what happens to the right of way if and when there should ever be a need to widen a street or make a modification to a street? If you allow the building to be built at zero, all of a sudden there's no tree to climb. Let's hear it from the developers.
Any response on the sewer report or the infrastructure report at this point, or maybe something to follow up about this? Okay.
Yeah, and there's been coordination with those departments, and while there are some areas that have, limited capacity, like, on the Indianola, I think people would point to that, because Indianola is developed with light industrial, and then we try to put a lot of residences there, that just isn't designed to handle that. But there are a lot of other areas where we do have the capacity, and there is different ways that we can unlock even more capacity with sewers, but the infrastructure report, I think, would be a good idea for people to see. As far as like dumpsters, deliveries, emergency vehicles, we have our Department of Safety that is part of the review process, even when there's no variances. And they are, believe me, very adamant to make sure that they can get to where they need to be, and their ladder trucks can put out a fire and they need to put it out. There are lots of things that have changed for developers' proposals because they're going to make sure that they can get the places they need, and also dumpsters, deliveries. That's also taken into consideration, especially dumpsters there as well. And there's some kind of innovative things that I think we could do with dumpsters and on-site trash and compacting that would lessen that need. And as far as setbacks go, we have a thoroughfare plan that designates right of way, and that's reviewed by public service. So if they see anything that they see, that needs change, like you're gonna need more right of way in the future, they're definitely going to approach the developers about that to make sure that
But
they.
once it's gone, right?
Well,
Once the
we're not
building's built,
moving the
it's
right of
gone.
way. Well, on the right of way isn't changing though, unless they're requesting to purchase right of way. Right of way is going to be the same today as after they develop.
I think we're getting close on time. We've got 3 zoning issues to cover today. You are all welcome back anytime. We would love to continue the conversation and really appreciate your very, very thorough responses. And,
I live in the neighborhood too, so I can come down here. That's not a problem. I won't make James come all the way down here every time, but he might. He's very willing to do it. But I'm happy to continue the conversation with him here or other places.
Thank you. And I see Mr. Lewis has some cards too. I think if anybody
That's
wants
not
one. Thank you.
Just give them out if we.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Chair Dahl, our elections commission.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Elections in Clintonville are in June, more on that in a minute. The districts up for election are districts 4, 5, and 7. I have an order of business around the date for our election. It kind of dates back to a couple years ago. The city of Columbus started the citywide election cycle. Clintonville changed its process and procedure in order to participate in those citywide elections that all happen on one date. A lot of benefit comes out of that. The city of Columbus has marketing, they create a lot of awareness through marketing campaigns, make marketing collateral available to us. So it raises awareness, creates more interest, you get more candidates, you get greater commission. So we want to continue that. That was kind of the plan. Well, the Department of Neighborhoods has set Saturday, August 31st as the citywide election date. And currently, Clintonville's bylaws reflect that the annual election date is
First Saturday in August.
Yeah, first Saturday in August. So in order to line up our bylaws with that citywide election date, we need to make a bylaw change. And so tonight I'm proposing that, you see the amended language up there, just we're changing one statement from, annual elections shall be the first Saturday in August to annual elections shall take place before September 30th each year. And it's best practice to put a broader statement in about, rather than a specific date, so that way we don't have to go on amending every year when the date can be changed. So I'm proposing it tonight, and the bylaws state that there will be a vote on this in the next regular meeting, so that's going to be June. We need 2/3 of a vote to approve that. And then we can finalize the election day. I'm hoping, cross my fingers, this will be approved. And then right after that meeting, the election, we'll start to post information on Facebook, the CAC website, about some of the election details and the date. And then in mid-June, the candidate petition packets will be available. So the next meeting, I'll present a little more detail on that. And again, the vote will happen on what I just submitted by the way of the election date. Any questions? Any questions? Try to keep it short.
Commissioner Wyman.
Would it be better just to say annual election shall be held in accordance with the city?
I believe,
Do you want to be in accordance with the city, no matter how they change it?
I mean, we're gonna have to keep coming back. I mean, if they make it, November 1st for some reason, then we're right back where we are.
I believe that September language came from the city.
It did. It came from our area commission best practice, like with the bylaws. It did suggested that from the city is that it would be the language to use.
And that September 30th date is from their suggested language.
Yes. I can send you that bylaw document if you'd like it.
Yeah.
I can do that. Sure.
Any other questions from commissioners? Any questions from the public about this change suggestion? Thank you so much, Chair. Next, we'll move on to our zoning and variance agenda. Chair Hardwick. I'm sorry, AP, I'm sorry. I didn't have the document.
We did enough.
Sorry.
Sorry, we just had out.
I'll open it. Why does it do that? Yeah, but the note, you don't want the notes, you want like the brief.
Up here, up on the screen.
Oh, it's just on my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Make sure we're on schedule, so if we miss a word.
Oh, this is beautiful. Okay, great.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for letting us come to your meeting tonight. My name is Nala Kovac, and I'm one of the External Affairs Managers with AEP Ohio. I'm accompanied with Nate Gronder, who is our Director of Distribution Operations, and Dale Hopkins, who is our Forestry Manager. So the last time we were here was February 2023, so it's been about 1.5 years since we were last here. So we just wanted to talk about, kind of a refresher of some of the things that we've done in the Clintonville area, along with our electricity system here in Clintonville. Talk about what we have invested and will continue to invest in the area. Go into a little more detail about our tree trimming and forestry program. Talk a little bit about storm restoration, and then open it for questions at the end. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Nate to start.
Yeah, so here in Clintonville, we provide power to over 31,000 customers. It's residential and small businesses, a little bit into small industrial off of Indianola. Most of that comes out of 17 circuits from our Clinton substation over there on Hudson and Silver Drive. We also have some other substations that come into the area, our Huntley substation, and some out of our St. Clair substation at the bottom of the area, but most of it's out of the Clinton substation. We have 178 miles of overhead lines and 27 miles of underground lines that feed into the community. So what we've done, since 2021 to 2023, we've invested over $22 million in upgrading the grid. We've replaced over 480 poles. We've added 575 or replaced 575 fuses. What that does is anywhere you put a fuse, it shrinks the area. So if you think of like your house, where power comes out of your breaker box, goes into your bathroom, and then there's that little GFI outlet right there. And then if something happens past that, that outlet will break and not the whole breaker, right? That's how fuses work. So when we put fuses in, we shrink those zones up. So, you know, here if we have a vehicle accident, have one of our squirrel friends get into our power lines, it will still take power out to some customers, but a smaller swath of customers instead of a larger group. We've trimmed over 115 miles of trees within our right of way. And we've installed special wire as we're replacing conductor that is more resistant to trees and small animals. We've replaced or installed 30,000 feet of overhead lines and over 14,000 feet of underground power lines. And we've added 66 new smart grid devices. So smart grid devices are things out on the system, work like a breaker in your house. We have multiple ones on a circuit. They can talk to each other. So if there is a power outage, they can isolate the area where the outage is at and automatically restore customers faster within 2 minutes, so they can shrink down what would normally be like a 1,000 customer outage where people used to have to manually get you to an older power source. It can do that, chunk it down to 250 customers within 2 minutes. It works pretty nice. You know, our current plan for the next 2 years will be continuing to do our circuit pole inspections and repairs, and then Dale's group's going to do 63 miles of vegetation management. You know, with our circuit inspections, our pole inspections, they both run on different 4-year cycles. And what happens is when we do pole inspections, we actually have a contractor come out. They do core samples at 3 different levels of that pole to make sure that the inside of the pole is doing well, and they also treat the pole. And then our circuit inspections, we actually have employees go out and they look at every piece of equipment that we have in the area from ground to sky and write up anything that needs repaired, replaced, and then get all those repairs done within a year. Oh wait, I got one more, sorry. So outages. So, you know, we still have outages in the area, unfortunately. You know, within the last, since February 2023, our major causes of outages is first is equipment issues. That's 33% of our outages. You know, we still have things where we have fuses blown, we have to replace all those. Planned outages is 12% of our outages. That's where we have our line workers coming out in the field. They're trying to do as much as possible as they can energize, but there are some times where we do have to take outages to do that. We've been working really hard to get better at communicating with customers on the front end of that. I cannot stress it enough. Make sure you go into your account, make sure you have the right phone number. And the reason why I say that is, you know, when I went from a home phone to just a cell phone, I never updated my phone number in my account. So if we send a phone blast and say, hey, next week you're gonna be out of power for 2 hours during here and here, it's what your account information has. If that phone number is not updated, you're not gonna get that phone call. Okay, so please do that, because we have been trying a lot in the last 2 years to really communicate either beforehand or if it's an emergency after the fact, just to let you guys know what happened. 26% of our outages are caused by vehicle accidents. You know, vehicle accidents are a hard nut to crack there. We do work on, we have places that happens over and over again. We look at every engineering solution that we can to see if there's going to be a change. But 9 times out of 10, there's also become longer outages, poles getting hit by cars, having to replace poles and things like that. And then 36% is nature. That's trees inside and outside of our right of way. So Dale's group can only trim the trees that are in our right of way. If you have a power line, you have a tree 100 feet away, but it's a 300-foot tree, the tree falls down, it's gonna hit the power lines, and it's gonna be out of our right of way. So, you know, and then the other thing, our little furry friends, squirrels, raccoons, those things cause outages all the time. When I first started here, I worked on power lines for us. I can't tell you how many dead squirrels I've seen in my career. It's amazing. It is funny, but it's not. We do put animal mitigation up to kind of deter that, but it's not a perfect thing. And, you know, when it comes to the trees, Dale will talk about it a little bit more, but when his foresters go out before we start trimming trees, they also look for unhealthy trees outside of the right of way. So if there is that 300-foot tree and it's starting to die and it's not healthy, they might knock on your door and say, hey, it's not in our right of way, but while we're here, would you like us to take it down? And that benefits everybody in the community, because, you know, property owner, tree costs are expensive, you know, and it also lets outages go down. So All right, I saw somebody sign.
That's all right, thanks, Nate. So my name's Dale, so I oversee AP Ohio's tree trimming program, vegetation management, we like to call it. So I have a team of 12 foresters. We have 3 in the Columbus area that work for the residents of Columbus. Steve Lodgeness, who was unable to be here tonight, he handles the Clintonville area, he works out of our Northwest Service Center. He's probably been here, he was here last year. Steve's great. He's been through these circuits in Clintonville about 6 times in his career. He comes here every 4 years as part of our 4-year tree trimming program. And I think most of you have lived in Clintonville for a while. You see every time we come through, the reliability gets a little bit better because trees and fallen branches are the #1 cause for AP Ohio for outages across our system. So by getting out every 4 years, trimming the trees proactively, and as Nate said, talking to property owners about trees that are outside of our right of way that we don't have the legal right to work on, but we take a look at them. We want to mitigate something that could fall and cause an unplanned outage, especially during a storm situation. Talk to the property owner, secure their permission to remove those trees, and work with them to do that. And quite often it's helping the homeowner also, because you've got a tree that's in decline that's outside the right of way. We can help you get it down free of charge to the property owner, but protecting the neighbors, the reliability for the neighbors in the area. So we're coming around every 4 years, as we said on the earlier slide. We're doing 63 miles in Clintonville this year, which is about 1/3 of the line miles that feed the city. So in 63 miles, storms, unfortunately, no matter what we do to trim trees back, we look for the obvious danger trees. We talk to property owners. We still have storms that come through, and we're really starting here in the storm season. We really ramped up earlier this year. If you've been paying attention to the tornadoes that have been coming through the Ohio area, it's starting out to be a violent season. So we still have what we call unplanned outages that are very hard to prevent. But we do work. My forestry crews work with our line crews to get out there and restore service as quickly as possible. As soon as it's safe for our tree crews to do the work, we get out there, we cut the trees off the power lines, let the line crews come in and restore service. A program that we do is very exciting. It's a partnership with the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium, and then also the Wild. So some of the branches that we're trimming off your trees right here in Clintonville, we're taking those to the Columbus Zoo, and they're using that to feed, I think there's about 800 animals that benefit from those tree branches and pieces of wood that we bring up there for them to use for nourishment, for play, for entertainment. Different animals do different things with it. And we also do it down at the Wilds down in Cumberland, Ohio. So I know that residents of Clintonville are very passionate about their trees, and you were talking about the gas company donated some trees, mitigated some damage that they did some trees. So one thing I really want to talk about, because we're in spring planting season, is the right tree in the right place. So whether you've had a tree removed, we're going to be removing a tree as part of our program. If you're putting a tree back in their next place, reach out to my team. We can give you some good guidance. Go to a well-known nursery, they can give you guidance. But we want to put a tree back in there that we're not going to have to be trimming on when it becomes tall every 4 years. Let's put something that's going to mature at the right height or width to still be a beautiful, magnificent tree, but it will not need to be trimmed on and potentially cause an outage. So turn it back over to Nala.
Perfect, thank you. I'm gonna go over a quick couple slides, and as Dale mentioned, we are in the thick season a little earlier this year for severe weather. So just kind of getting a behind the scenes look of how our teams prepare for severe weather, and then also talking about how you all can prepare as customers in case of severe weather. Next slide, please. Perfect, so we have 3 meteorologists on staff that are constantly looking at the weather across our AEP system. So they are letting not only our crews know about being proactive in case of severe weather coming up, but also letting other teams know to then ensure our customers are aware when severe weather is coming through. And truly every storm is different, between wind, hail, ice, snow. So they do a really great job making sure that we know exactly what system of storm that we're seeing. Like I said, prepare our crews and our customers in the event of severe weather. So our storm restoration is kind of 4 main process, and really when it comes to wind and ice, not ice right now, fingers crossed, you never know with the pile of weather. But wind and ice are really the big things that are gonna cause potential power outages when we see severe weather. So it's really a four-step process that our team uses, and Dale kind of alluded to earlier. It's first going to be, once a storm rolls through, we do see power outages is the assessment of damages. So assessing and seeing what are next steps before deploying our crews to then make repairs. Depending on the storm too, I want to mention our meteorologists, like I said, that are tracking the storm, that, if we see a big storm that's coming through with potential of widespread outages, that we will call in other crews from within AEP to come and help within the Central Ohio area, or as well as we use a mutual assistance program for calling crews and other utilities if the weather's going to be that severe. So we assess the damage, then start making repairs. We first want to focus on our most critical infrastructure customers, so that's going to be police, fire, hospital, nursing homes. Those are kind of our first focus. Then we move on into large clusters of groups. So where we have the largest amount of customers that are out and going to be the easiest or quickest, I should say, to get back on, we'll then work with the large clusters, move on to small clusters until we're working on individual homes, until every single person is back on in power. So our crews will continue to work until everyone is back in power. So when it comes to individual homes, this is where it might be a little more time consuming because, it is a little, can be a little more difficult getting one-on-one houses back on versus when you have those large clusters through our storm restoration process. So that's kind of behind the scenes of how we at AEP Ohio are preparing for severe weather, but how customers can prepare. It's a couple different things. One is having an emergency kit at home. So that could be a flashlight, backup batteries, making sure your phones are charged, and as well as any medications that you might have. We strongly encourage any customer that's on any type of life support to make sure that they have a plan in place in case of a longer duration during an outage. I want to make sure that everyone is being safe during a potential storm. As well as, making sure you're checking on elderly neighbors if you have them or family to make sure they have a plan, an emergency kit with them. Another great way is making sure you're staying connected. As Nate mentioned earlier, making sure your contact information is up to date. We can't stress that enough. Both your phone number as well as signing up for text alerts is a great way to be able to stay connected. And following us on social, Facebook, X, as it's now called. If there's an event of widespread outages, we will use that to send text alert messages to our customers, but also posting on social of what an estimated restoration time is happening in your area. So last couple quick things before I open it up for questions. Just some quick safety reminders. If you see down lines, always stay away from down lines and call 911 or AEP Ohio immediately. And not if you just see a downline, but also make sure that you're staying away from anything it may be touching. You might see in cartoons, it should be sparking or making a noise. That's not always the case. So always assume a downline is energized and to get away from the area as quickly as possible. And also don't attempt to cut or remove any trees that are near lines. As I said, call 911 or AEP Ohio immediately if you see any down lines. And this is from a picture of some of the storms that we had rolling in through early March in April. So like I said, kind of in the thick season of severe weather. So wanted to send some quick reminders and kind of how we internally work on our storm restoration process. So with that, that is my contact information. My email up there, you are always more than welcome to send me an email. But if you have more general questions about your account or things going on, you can always contact our Customer Solutions Center as well.
Thank you very much. Any questions from commissioners for Nala and the team?
Yeah, I'd like to know where you have those 300-foot trees in Ohio.
Well, I was just trying to make a point. There's Ohio redwoods.
I think we have a public question. Please, could you state your name for the minutes?
Yes, I would like to ask about, has no thought been given to gradually converting these lines to underground and eliminating 90% of the problems you've just discussed?
So,
I don't know what the cost-benefit ratio is, but as an engineer, that's the sort of thing it seems we ought to be looking at.
There's a couple different things, there's benefits to both in-ground or underground and underground wires. Underground wires fail as well. And then when they fail, you have to find out where they're bad, dig them up and repair them. So first off, that's not a perfect system of electricity either. The second thing is when you come into established neighborhoods, to underground in established neighborhoods, you have a couple problems. The first is, if you underground the electricity, then you're also gonna have to underground all the other utilities that are on the poles. So then you find it, with an established neighborhood, you actually have the room within the ground to get all the right of ways to do all that. And then also, what a lot of people don't understand too is when you go in, because we've had communities, if you drive in Reynoldsburg down Main Street, they undergrounded Main Street from before Bryce Road all the way through Old Town Reynoldsburg. But there's also costs involved that the customers should have with undergrounding. AP Ohio doesn't own your guys' meter boxes. If we underground all that, somebody would have to pay to change those meter boxes to one that does underground water. And once you touch an upgraded meter box, then you have a pull permit. If you pull a permit, the city of Columbus is going to look at your whole entire electrical system. And there might not be anything wrong with it, but it might not be up to code for today. It's the same thing if you sell a house or buy a house. You buy an older house that has 100 amp service in it, you go to sell it, to go up to code nowadays, because when it was first put in, we use more electricity than it's a 200 amp service. So there's also cost of customers involved with that too. So when we look at undergrounding, we gotta take all those things in consideration. The one thing that we've been trying here that we've found success is we're replacing lines is how we design the overhead lines and what type of wire we actually use. So that picture she showed with all those wires down, our wires on the top are high voltage wires. Those are bare. There's no insulation on them. There's no coating on them. They're bare. Okay. We now started installing. We have some in Clintonville. It's called tree wire. It's a black wire. It's not 100% insulated, but it's got a nice plastic coating. It'll let so the trees don't burn it if they fall on it. And then there's also another kind of construction where we call bundled cable, where instead of having 3 wires out on a wooden arm, we have them all bundled like the city of Columbus uses it too, and you'll see the bracket in that. And the key to that is it shrinks the area of what can hit the wires. So as we're replacing wires, we're looking at those solutions too. So that way, can we make the system more reliable? Yes. And can we also, eliminate the cost of the customer? Because if we did do full ground underground, there'd be cost to the customer as well.
Thank you.
I hope I answered your question.
Well, it just seems like that, we're in the process of reinventing Clintonville. And
I was listening to the,
I'm just saying, like particularly down High Street, it would seem to make sense to try to get the lines underground, because it's all going to be torn to dickens anyway.
And if that happens, and if the zoning changes, and we go to we talked about 0 setback buildings and stuff like that, there may be things in the future that forces us to go that way. And as those building projects, we've had projects like that in different parts of the city have come to us. We're in the right of way, now the building's closer, we have to move our lines to stick with electrical code and those things. We look at better solutions to do that. Sometimes undergrounding is part of that solution. Not always, but sometimes it is. So if the community does change down these corridors, that's something that'll have to be considered when it happens.
Thank you very much for opening up that conversation. And we do have 3 zoning pieces to get through, so one final brief.
I would ask you some of the things, but
It's just a question. So I appreciate the information about the different types of wires that you were, considering. Is there anything that is up and coming regarding poles?
So,
smaller, narrower, less.
Unfortunately, smaller, narrower, and less is probably not coming. And the reason why is we have, even in the city, we have requests by more and more fiber optic companies and communication companies to be on our poles. Because everyone's using fiber for a whole bunch of different things. And every time one of those companies come to us, we have to structurally engineer to make sure that we have enough spacing from our facilities to their facilities, and also enough thickness to support the weight and the strength. So what usually comes with that is a bigger, wider pole. But some of the solutions we've been slowly getting into lately is going away from wooden poles to steel poles. And the steel poles do seem to be a little bit thinner, the height's not gonna go away because you need the room. So I think, but I've been around power lines for 22 years, I think they actually look nice. They have fiberglass arms, they're gray, they have steel. So we've been going to more steel structures as it becomes more readily available and as it makes more sense. But that's why they're getting bigger and more around.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate you guys coming back regularly and for that thorough presentation and for answering all of our questions too. Thank you.
Anytime,
Thank
guys.
you very much. Chair Hardwick, we'll start with BZA 2437, 581 Rescue Road.
Thank you, there are three variances. There is I'll just go more quickly. This is to accommodate a lot split of what is a double-sized lot compared to the neighboring lots. They're looking for variance to allow a second house to go on there. So they can split the double lot and put two houses there.
Thank you.
Mary Rogers came to me, she expressed concern there wasn't a hardship, and she then found historically there were two lots in the past. The biggest concern from neighbors was possible stormwater, and we have really no way of evaluating stormwater in the city. So the city stormwater people had no comment on it on their report. Because we're short on time, I think I'll just let the vote was recommended approval 6-0 to 1. We had one abstention who has worked with one people from the architects in the case.
Thank you. Is the applicant here this evening?
Yes.
Would you like to share anything about your project before? I know we've got the minutes and the summary, but would you like to share anything before we?
Yeah, I'll share two things. I was really fortunate to be here actually for the presentation by James related to the new zoning code. So actually, this is a new business venture for me to purchase these properties in the city and help increase accessibility to quality housing. So this is very much in tune strategically with trying to increase opportunities for access to housing. The other thing that I realized from tonight's presentation is that on our zoning submission, we actually have trees that are under the AEP wires, so I probably need to move those so that we don't put those there. Because we are required by zoning to add one tree for each parcel, and those do not exist, and we have an opportunity to place them more adjacent to the residents that will be constructed so that we don't have to have them under an AEP wire and cable. The other thing I would say is that these are designed for, after a lot of research related to marketability, and we want it to be a market rate availability so that buyers are interested in living in the residence and not buying it as an investor for sale. So there's a lot of interest in providing durable materials and low maintenance and long-standing durability so that the residents will be able to appear as it is now for a long time without a lot of degradation of its quality, and that the owners would be interested in staying in it. So that, because I know that some investors can come in and buy lower priced housing and then flip it really quickly and that kind of stuff. So this is intended to be available for sale to a interested party that would stay with it. Yeah.
Thank you. Are there questions from commissioners for the applicant? Are there questions from the public? All right, we'll go ahead and make a vote. Commissioner Moritz, shall the three variances be approved?
Yes.
Commissioner Kroll?
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Lotta?
I abstain.
Commissioner Nutter?
Yes.
Commissioner Weinman?
Yes.
So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses and 1 abstention. Congratulations and best of luck with your project.
Thank you.
Chair Hardwick will move on to BZA 24-38, 116 West Lakeview.
And this is another lot split, except for it says instead of one narrow lot, this is they're cutting it down the middle of it, what's close to a double lot on Lakeview. And that the variances are simply to allow the lots. It's only the lot width that they are asking to change. They did present the applicant did show some comparable areas down the street where they had similar distances between buildings. It is, if you look at lot, that is a much bigger lot than the other ones nearby. I'll let Commissioner Nutter did not agree with this assessment, so I'll let him speak for himself. My vote, this is that I keep hearing from the neighbors in this area, they want more single family homes, they want fewer apartments, and this is adding a single family home to the area, not another duplex. There are a lot of duplexes on that street. I'll let the minutes speak for themselves. Oh, the recommended approval was 6-1.
Thank you. Is the applicant here for this project? Yeah. Would you like to share anything additional from the committee report?
Sure. So I'm the architect on the project. My name is Julie Bullock, and this is the owner of the property directly east of this proposal. And we're proposing a new single home for him to occupy. We did a lot of research on, what would be appropriate size for this community, and ultimately decided, that a single family home would work best on this parcel. It is really an interesting neighborhood with a lot of mixes of duplexes, narrow lots, wider lots, so there is a variety of housing. What we're proposing is to be 5 feet away from the original historic home to the east. That doesn't require us to do anything to the facade, which is asbestos siding, and it's also a charming cottage that you prefer not to modify. So the city of Columbus requires lot width to be measured at the front of the lot, and our lot does widen in the back. We did that to meet the minimum requirements for lot area, as well as kind of give an equitable amount of area to each lot. That also gives us the ability for both lots to have eventually a 2-car garage off the alley. The other thing that's interesting about this neighborhood, even though there is an alley behind it on this side of the street, some of the houses have driveways, which kind of increases the setback between buildings. And it just so happens the house, the duplex that's directly to the west of us, has a driveway. So we are going to end up being about, we're going to be 8 feet away from the house to the east and about 12 feet away from the house to the west. We feel this fits into the aesthetics of the neighborhood with the single family home. My client also did, he's a numbers person, and so he did a lot of research on what's the average width of lots in the area, what's the average setbacks. And I don't know if you want to speak more to that, or you want
Yeah, I guess I'll just introduce myself real quick. I'm Becky Julian, the homeowner. I've lived in Clintonville for 6 years, 5 years in the house on the east lot here. My wife and I have, in the last 3 years, we've had 2 daughters, and so the walls are moving in on us, and really this project allows us to stay in this house longer, and here's some other pictures of the house, but it's 3 bedrooms upstairs and a bedroom downstairs that hopefully one day our father-in-law, my father-in-law, can move in to the downstairs the main floor, and the basement, no, the main floor bedroom that is, that we're proposing, and so I have data on houses. I think it fits well. My current house has 2 duplexes between me. I love my duplex neighbors. I know some people maybe don't, but I love them. I like single family homes, neighbors, and if I can add one more to the street. And I know there was some questions about, if you don't mind scrolling up to the zone, that one, the yellow, about, there's a lot over 152 and 154 to the left. That was actually split in 2009. Rick and Julie live in the house in the front. And we did consider setting the home on this newly created west lot in the back like that, but one, we had more width to be able to set it in the front. We want a front porch. We want, to interact with the neighborhood. We'd like a backyard to not interact with the neighborhood. It's, kids, dogs, etc. And ultimately, we found that the way Julie has contemplated it and drawn it out on some of the elevations, just works best. And my wife can attest, I've been in that backyard since pretty much COVID with measuring tape and flags and just trying to figure it out from every angle and make sure I sat out in the lawn chair where the back porch would be and just try to figure out, will this look right, where will the fence go? Am I treating, I don't want to rip off the back porch of the existing home because I have to sell the house one day. So at any rate, I'm happy to answer any questions. Sorry, I went a little long.
And the only other thing I would say, there were some questions at the zoning meeting about, the width of our house, and is this a narrower house that's in the neighborhood? So we did, since that meeting, a little bit of research, and actually, there's a lot of doubles, and those doubles are each about 15 feet wide in living space. Ours is 23 feet wide. I think the neighboring house that he owns now is only 22 feet wide, and it seems like that 22 to 23, especially as you get closer to High Street, is an average width for the houses in the neighborhood. So we do feel the size, it's gonna be about a 2,000 square foot house. We're not trying to do a mega mansion or anything here. We're trying to do a home that responds to the context of the neighborhood. So that's our intention.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from commissioners about the project? Commissioner Nutt?
I have a question, well, not a question, but it's a statement about it. I did since then drive by your property and stuff like that, so I did. 202 in your street is a very dense area, okay? I mean, in fact, it's hard to navigate down the streets even because people park on the streets as opposed to parking in their driveways or their garage. So my concern when I first heard about the project was, I think a lot of times that people want to move to Clintonville and they want the space. And I worry about that we are dividing properties, which are good sized property, and people are leaving Italian Village, they're leaving German Village to have a bigger lot and come to Clintonville. And so I don't want to be an Italian Village, and I don't want to be a German Village with all these no yards. And I think that was my main concern with that. I did know that there was the project down the street, where the house was set back, okay? But, and I see that your lot is a little bit bigger than that, okay? So those kind of things, but my concern is that everything is so close together, and that was my concern basically, that you're dividing the lot. So it would be two R3 parcels property is what you're saying, is what you're doing.
Yeah, and we meet the minimum requirement for the R3. And we're also, our lot coverage, I think it's like 38%, or no, 23%, and I think 22.7% lot coverage. So to me, when I look at projects, I always look at that density. What is the density? Columbus allows for 50% lot coverage. So I feel like when you can get that kind of density and preserve the art space, which is really important to my client, which is why he doesn't want a bigger home, but at the same time, I mean, he's doing this so he has art for his kids.
I guess my first question when we first brought it up was, why didn't we just add to the house? Yeah. Add an addition to it, so.
We consider it, it's expensive.
There's just
Especially
some,
given the layout.
yeah, it's a 1.5 story, just the way it's constructed.
Well, the house you have now is cute. I mean,
I love
It
it.
is cute. We also thought it's, in some ways, it's so cute. Like, let's leave that traditional architecture.
And how often are you gonna pick your neighbors, or we sell it to somebody either that we know or that we people like, hopeful like, so.
I pick my neighbors, so.
And we have a wonderful Como Park, 0.2 miles out there on this picture, and so.
Yeah.
So anyway.
It's a great little pocket.
And I know there was a concern of the one no vote was the concern about the lot line does jog. Consider it every way, but I think it helps alleviate any future debates between neighbors about where we put the fence, because that's roughly where I would put probably a low chain link fence so you can have visibility out, and it won't feel, 6 foot tall privacy fences will feel tight, so I just figured I'd just split it with a low fence.
Are there any questions from the public about this project? We'll go ahead and vote. Commissioner Moritz?
Yes.
Commissioner Kroll?
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Lotta?
Yes.
Commissioner Nutt?
Yes.
Commissioner Weinman?
No.
We've got 5 yeses and 1 no. Your project is approved.
Good luck.
Thank you. And our final zoning request tonight is Council Variance 24-35, 171 East Casemont Road. Chair Hardwick.
Thank you, Ms. Hudson. Yes, the zoning people here, this application is an example of why we really could use some clear rules on ADUs and garages. Because the ad hoc makes it in there, the applicant is stuck between the city and the neighborhood in some ways, where the city has given him a choice of either going full ADU or just, or no finishing at all inside the garage. And so and I think this comes down to when we have that choice, are we gonna tell people, okay, you can do the full ADU, or he's getting permission for the full ADU. The plan is not to have a full ADU right now, but he's getting, do you wanna give people permission for that, or do you just wanna say, no, you can't do anything finished above the garages anymore because the city can't distinguish between an art studio and a completely separate residence. That's what this is about. The garage in this case goes to California, which is over the ravine, so it's not going into, it's different from other neighborhoods. We do get a number of emails and letters of support, including one very nice handwritten letter, which I think is the first handwritten letter I've gotten in a long time. We have one neighbor concerned that this could turn into an Airbnb at some point. And the vote to approve was 4-3, and we put all the reasons in the minutes, because we're running late, I'll let the minutes speak for themselves. And that's the commission.
Thank you. I'm assuming you're the applicant.
I am. I'm the property owner. My name's Nigel, and that was a good summary. So it's been a difficult journey. I told the city at the beginning of the year that I was interested in building a second story on top of the existing garage, which is about 75 years old. So maintaining the existing footprint, efficient, just doing a pretty efficient kind of addition. And I told the city, I'm interested in having extra storage space as a baseline. So I'm willing to just do that, but I said I'd like to use it as a studio. I'm a graphic designer and printmaker. So I told him I'd like to use it as a studio. I'd like to put a sink up there, maybe put a toilet up there at some point. Like long term, I'd like to have my options open to finish it so it's comfortable. And the advice that I got was, in the past, I guess even as recently as like 2 years ago, you could accomplish that with the BZA variance to have habitable space. But what I was told is that's no longer possible. So I was given this direction to apply for an ADU, which is the reason for why there's so many what seem like pretty extreme variance requests, like the parking. So I'm aware, like that seems really dramatic to have 2 dwellings on the whole property, to have a parking variance, and then there's also like a rear yard variance, because having 2 dwellings means I need to have 50% of the total lot area as a rear yard. So I only have 28%. So it's been difficult, and after the meeting with the zoning committee last week, I did reach back out to the city, and I'm not trying to complain about the city, but after several weeks, more than a month of talking to the city and saying, hey, I don't want this to be a house. I just want to be able to put drywall up and put a mini split in and maybe put a toilet in. After months of being told I needed to have it as a second dwelling, the city charged me 2 application fees, which was more than I was expecting to pay for that. And, so then actually, like as of a few days ago, the city a person who was assigned me did come back and say, oh, we told you the wrong thing. If you're willing to not put cooking facilities in, then we can't consider it as habitable space above a garage. So it would still require a council variance, but apparently they discovered something that I've been pressing them for, and they told me that there was no option besides an ADU, a complete second dwelling. Until a couple days ago, they did actually come back to me and say, well, if you want to rewrite all of your statement of hardship to say it's going to be an art studio, and it would require a height variance instead of a second dwelling. And so with just given the time, it was like 2 days ago, I decided, and I've already paid the application fee. Just being totally honest, I'm pretty fed up with the whole process. All I'm really looking to do is have the option to build this finished habitable space for an art studio above my garage. I don't have any plans to use it as a dwelling for myself, or certainly not like as a rental. But I'm aware, basically that's what I'm asking for. So I'm throwing myself at your mercy to help me get. At this point, I'm just kind of trying to be done with this crazy process that's been, since really the beginning of the year in dialogue with the city.
And I'll just note, I got a personal note from one of your neighbors at 170. I think he's based on the Williams family is very supportive of this project, so that's the only outreach I got from the constituents on this project. Are there other questions or comments from commissioners at this point about this project?
I think that is a question. I think it is a big concern that the city's not on the same page
100%.
when constituents go and try to get permits, what they want to do, and even people in their own office is not on the same page. So I think that's really frustrating for homeowners to be able to do that. And I'm directing that to the city. That needs to be recommended, because this is the start of something that's going to continue from now on. And we're going to be dealing with this situation for weeks, forever.
This is also not the first time that, since I've been on CAC, that we've gotten issues with ADU adjacent type projects and missed.
So I feel bad for your situation. I do empathize with you, but I have concerns about approving it because I'm not sure what we're approving, to be honest with you.
Well, we're still approving, so the vote will still be on these 5 variances, right? We're not changing any of what's disposed of. So it's the R3 residential district on the same lot, the decrease in minimum lot size, reduce the minimum lot size. It's the same 5.
That's correct. Yeah, I decided, after the city kind of came back with a different path a couple days ago, I got some advice from a friend and just decided to stick with kind of Plan A, since that's what I already paid for, that's what I've already been kind of planning on and already wrote.
It seems like variances 2 and 3 are just basically paperwork issues.
Yes.
Because you're not going to be able to extend your lot to 50 feet wide.
Correct.
It is what it is.
Correct.
You're just kind of catching up with the paperwork, basically.
Are there other questions or comments from commissioners? Questions from the public? Go ahead and have a vote. Commissioner Morris?
Yes.
Commissioner Kroll?
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Lotta?
Yes.
Commissioner Nutter?
No.
Commissioner Muffin?
No.
We've got 4 yeses and 2 nos. Congratulations on your project and good luck. We do have a few more minutes. Our next meeting will be at 7 p.m. in this room on Thursday, June 6th. I'll make a quick note and we will publish this online as well. The July meeting is on the 4th of July. It's currently scheduled. The library has agreed to let us use this space Thursday, July 11th. So we will be moving our July meeting to the 2nd Thursday of July. And it will be a big splashy minutes piece. So we'll publish that widely. Are there any additional public comments this evening before we break? Any additional questions or comments from commissioners? All right, thank you everyone for your participation. Have a lovely evening. Return.
Question for you. Let me just.
Yeah.
So